Thank you, Sarah, for the wonderful introduction as always. Thank you to my panelists and the audience for taking the time to be here. Just to dive in, because I'm conscious that we have a short session, Professor Ilya, I would like to start with you as our academic expert in venture capital, corporate venture capital. You are the co-author of a best-selling novel, book about the venture mindset. I just wanted to understand from you, what do you think Abu Dhabi can do to develop a robust VC ecosystem and achieve global growth?
Thank you, Yasmin. First of all, great to be here. It is a $100 trillion question. What is going to happen in the next 10 to 20 years? Here's the question to the audience. Have you ever heard of the French Google, Japanese NVIDIA, British Meta, or Italian Google? And there's a reason why you haven't. That's because of the venture capital. The United States have developed an amazing venture capital industry innovation ecosystem in the last 50 years. And other G7 developed countries have not. And as a result of this, the gap in productivity and the gap in the GDP between the US and all the other countries doubled in the last 40 years. And that is an amazing statistics. And so the whole point for Abu Dhabi is that to follow the US and to become much more productive and do not follow the stagnation of a number of other countries. So the question is how to develop this venture capital innovation ecosystem. And there are a number of factors, and I have been studying these factors for quite a bit. And the first important factor is to ensure that people who are sitting here with me, the venture capitalists, are really interested to come here, really interested to invest, to bring their know-how, but also that they are represent from early stage to late stage to those that help companies exit. Second, to invite and create the critical mass of talent. So that is the innovation hub for the talent. That is the single most important challenge for many scenarios where the innovation hub has not happened in many other destinations. So that is the critical point of if Abu Dhabi wants to become a leader, a #1 regional leader in the top 5, top 10 innovation hubs in the next 20 years. Which means that it will create not just thousands of startups and will be managing billions of dollars of capital under management in innovation and startups and venture and be the lead in technology, but also that it will have the companies that will become the next Google, next NVIDIA. My research shows that especially right now, because of the dramatic change in the AI and technology, the next 10 to 15 years will produce at least 10 trillion dollar companies. So with the right attitude, one of those companies, or at least one, will be in Abu Dhabi. Let's hope so.
Let's hope so. Well, Bilal, you represent one of the leading VCs in the region, in the UAE. What's your perspective on this, and how can we strengthen the ecosystem for a homegrown fund like yourself?
So I think Professor Ilya hit the nail on the head. I think the deepening of the venture capital ecosystem here and for the availability of risk capital therein is going to be important. But I think a corollary to that is also bringing here the best talent that can both affect the venture capital ecosystem, but also tech companies as well. I think we're right now in the midst of what I would call the Emirates dream. In the same way that the American dream drew talent from around the world to be able to come in right at the beginning of the venture capital growth in that country, to build companies, to invest in companies, to execute on some of these fantastic business models that we've seen grow. We're seeing the same here now, where talent is not just coming here from the region's best markets and the best and brightest therein, but also from around the world. And we can't undervalue or discount that, both in terms of the companies that we will invariably see grow here, and we do this on a daily basis, but also the investments and the investors that are going to come here and bringing in fresh capital that brings new ideas. So there's no dearth of capital in the region, yes, but you want to be able to diversify that capital, bring in more risk capital, bring in those ideas from other markets, and we are right in the midst of seeing that right now. And that's what will allow us to execute on what Professor Ilya mentioned there and not fall into that sort of dreamlike environment that sort of Europe seems to have fallen into.
I mean, if I may add to a couple of the comments here, when I started my first company, I was 22, and innovation was just purely coming from the US. People used to see what are the business models that work in the US and how can I make them and take them somewhere else and build them somewhere else successfully. I'm not saying that that's not happening anymore, but at this time when you have other focuses of venture developed in other geographical regions, you start to see innovation to come from a lot of other places. Now there's business models that are built in India, that are built in the Middle East, that are built in Latin America, that people in the US look at and say, maybe we should be building that for the US. No? And I think that's part of the role that can be played here, because the ecosystem here is amazing from the perspective of having capital at different stages and being able to attract the right talent and the right pool of people. No? So that's something that the region should leverage on.
Jose is absolutely right, but there is an important corollary from that, and that is that there's going to be a dramatic increase in competition among innovation hubs. So that Abu Dhabi will not be the only one, and I've been to already many regions around the world that are now competing because the cost of entry to become an innovation hub is now lower. So therefore, there is this golden opportunity that might be gone in 3 to 5 to 7 years.
So, as one of those venture capitalists who was lured here by the dream of Abu Dhabi, I can tell you that part of my 4-year journey, and actually it started way before that, but officially 4 years, has now been fulfilled, which is that we came here, we've invested heavily, and we've built an AI development center, which is now morphed into a startup called Integrated Data Intelligence, who today is announcing a new product called Dana, which is, I understand, an Abu Dhabi term for a rare pearl, which will actually identify venture capital winners by using AI for venture capital. And this was achieved not just by the open support of ADIO and the ecosystem, but the unique ability to recruit world-class talent, PhDs and masters, and leading researchers from around the world who came here to implement it in Abu Dhabi. But the idea is not just to do work for hire, not just to let someone else outside of the country do a wireframe and you fill in the dots or color the borders, but to start the research from the beginning and take it all the way through a full stack. And if there's that kind of courage and the willingness of investors to take the risk, which I think there is, then the future is very bright indeed.
And before we dive into the AI, John, I've known you for a couple of years, and you are definitely one of the organizations that puts your money where your mouth is when it comes to Abu Dhabi. So when it comes to sourcing talent and retaining talent, do you think there's more that can be done by Abu Dhabi to ensure this continuous growth?
Look, I think that Abu Dhabi is doing a great job in terms of branding. The capital of capital is pretty good brand, okay? It's something you can bet on. But the job is up to us. Right, ultimately, we have to create the exciting startup, the management team that can take the talent, that can sit in front of a PhD who today has the ability of getting jobs everywhere. Okay, people are salivating for these AI researchers. And so you've got to be competitive, and I think you can. But it's required not just more money from the government, it's the continued building of the ecosystem. For example, the fact that Microsoft has just invested $1.5 billion in G42, that's pretty cool. That's a sign of backing. And I think that certainly in the area of AI, Abu Dhabi can be a world player.
And we've touched on AI in previous sessions. We clearly keep circling back to AI. So, Jose, I want to ask you, you're a serial entrepreneur. You are also an investor. What specific trends would you be focusing on in the next 5 years?
Well, we have the good or bad habit of being very contrarian in the type of things we do. And, we believe that AI is absolutely transformational in what we are seeing in the world. Different stories, how do we think you can make money out of it, no? We believe that some of the large incumbents are going to be the big winners of what we call generative AI. So we are not that bullish on investing on generative AI initiatives as many other people do, but we are big believers in investing on AI as an enabler to do things in a more efficient way and in a better way. I mean, we are mostly marketplace and network effect investors. And what I can say is that utilizing AI, to build supply and demand matching in a more efficient way, how do you make, attract demand in a more efficient way by utilizing AI? All of those things are incredibly transformational, and we are doing a lot of stuff on the investing side that is leveraging that. And when we specifically look into it, the picks and shovels of the industry, that's where we believe that a lot of money is going to be made. No? And we continue to invest into a lot of that. There's companies that have a lot of proprietary data, and we think that for those companies that can process that proprietary data in an effective way, that can also build competitive advantage to existing incumbents. No? But if independent players, new players come up with ideas of getting the source of data better than others, and use AI, that's also a very big source of disruption. In enterprise software, there's incredible opportunities of disruption by utilizing AI. And if you ask me, that's probably the area where I think there's going to be the most disruption. Now, there's, again, a lot of Copilot services, and those are also very valuable, that utilize AI to do things. And in some cases, those are just going to be functionalities. And I'm not sure how many big businesses are going to be built out of that, other than just being picked up and integrated into other companies. But there's going to be others that are going to be massively disruptive. So those are some of the big high-level trends that we are seeing on how we are playing AI.
Just a very brief comment on that. Many top venture capital funds in the Valley now invest only and only in AI businesses. So in fact, AI now is necessary but not sufficient. But there are two types of AI investments. It's AI first or AI native investments. So Gen AI is a classical example. And another one, what I call AI enabled businesses. And so Jose mentioned enterprise software. Most of those was AI enabled businesses. And I think that that type of businesses is where there's a lot of opportunities and a lot of potential. And if we look at both the predictions, but also where a lot of smart money is going right now in AI, where, for example, my students at Stanford working on AI is AI-enabled businesses. And that is going to revolutionize legacy, traditional industries much more eventually. And I think that is going to happen very soon, including in the Middle East.
Yeah, but I would also say that just because of what Ilya said of all of the VCs investing only in AI, I mean, there's a huge opportunity to go back and look to traditional businesses, and make money out of that. No? So I wouldn't put out as an investor, I would not put myself blind and say, the only way that we can make money is if we ride the AI wave. No? I mean, we are certainly doing that, but we continue to see a lot of areas where you can really, benefit from less competition and incredible opportunity.
I gave Jose as a great example in my book, The Venture Mindset. So Jose is a contrarian. And his favorite saying is conviction beats consensus. So if everybody goes AI, he'll go back to traditional business.
I think that what we're calling AI-enabled businesses is essential. I look at it more as a vertical strategy where there are some industries that are going to be, fundamentally changed from A to Z, others less so, but it's actually, I think, a rather good bet to bet on breadth. Meaning, agriculture. You might say, how is agriculture going to be changed? Well, talk to Bilal about protein folding. Talk to my companies about preventing prescription, errors. Talk about how to improve immunotherapy take-up by like 300%. This stuff is coming, and it's not 10 years or 5 years. These are products that are getting FDA approved and fast-tracked. If you look at things like education, the worst job prognosis, in my opinion, now in the world is teaching assistant. All these useless TAs, you are going to be freed from your jobs. AI's coming, and it's going to be a damn better tutor than the TA, even at Harvard.
Well, I'm glad you haven't mentioned professors, only TAs.
Okay, you look at things like small business. Today, I think most people associate AI with big businesses, with Google and Meta and Amazon and big corporations. But what's going to happen is the individual sole practitioner sitting with his cool little double screen desk, he's going to be the master of the universe, he or she, finally, because these AI tools are going to be made to work, and they are being made to work now for the small business. So I see this as just literally, it's a second chance. I mean, I've been around the venture industry for 40 years, both as a serial entrepreneur and as a venture capitalist. I come from a little country across the way here where there's a lot of venture capital. But the reality is that I thought that the internet bubble and the internet excitement was like once in a lifetime. It was pretty cool. But it's nothing compared to this. This is so much bigger. And it makes a sort of an old guy like me feel young, and the rest of you should be feeling pretty exciting, because the cycle is changing, and the cycle is headed for an upswing that you haven't seen anything like it.
Bilal, when you look at portfolio companies that you might potentially invest in, what is your take as a local VC, local and regional? What is your take on companies that use AI for their companies? Advantage or challenge?
Yeah, look, I think everything that's been said by my colleagues here is absolutely spot on. I think to circle this back to, you know, the venture capital, the start of something new, certainly as it pertains to Abu Dhabi, what we look for is a greenfield, right? We're seeing AI come into some of our companies that are in biotech. We're seeing AI-enabled businesses, AI-first businesses, AI being leveraged by fintech companies, AI being leveraged by agriculture tech companies. And I think that's where Abu Dhabi has a real march. It's really become the lab for innovation, especially when it comes to AI, because that's just fundamentally a reflection of the number of challenges that are left to be solved in our region as a whole. So, you know, we don't just have founders here solving for the Emirates. We have founders here that are solving for Egypt, for Pakistan, for Bangladesh, for Morocco, and that is what makes this region very exciting. And AI, but also, you know, hopefully one day in the future, multimodal models, hopefully beyond that, different types of innovations in quantum computing and elsewhere are also going to be solving these challenges. And just one last point, I think one thing that's worth emphasizing is what role Abu Dhabi can play as a leader in that. And we're seeing it already when it comes to infrastructure. So data centers, incredibly important for this part of the world. And compute power, incredibly important for this part of the world, which ends up giving both economic might but also ecosystem heft to Abu Dhabi, and that's one area where I think we can lead in the AI race.
Thank you. I see that we're out of time, although I would have preferred for this to go a lot longer. Thank you, gentlemen. Thank you to the audience for attending. I hope everybody enjoys the rest of Abu Dhabi Finance Week.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Pleasure.